Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're going to be diving into something pretty wild today.
Oh, yeah?
It's Bill Gates and his funding of research into sun-dimming technology.
Sun dimming?
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah.
like something straight out of science fiction.
Right.
And the research is from a few years back,
Okay.
2021 to be exact. But honestly, it feels so much more relevant now, especially with
Yeah.
everything that's been going on.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, those crazy storms ripping through the U.S. and Europe this year.
Oh, yeah.
Climate change is a massive issue, you know, and it seems like people are getting more and more serious about finding solutions.
Yeah,
Even the really radical ones.
for sure. For sure.
What do you think about all this? Hit us up in the comments.
Yeah, let us know.
Let's know your thoughts, your questions as we go.
Right into it.
All right.
So this is interesting because the solution,
Okay.
it's called solar geoengineering.
Hmm.
And it's so controversial.
Oh, really?
We're talking about altering the Earth's climate system
Wow.
on a massive scale.
So for those of us who haven't really spent much time thinking about this sun dimming thing,
Yeah.
can you break it down? Like, how is it supposed to work?
Basically,
Yeah.
the idea is to reflect sunlight
Okay.
back into space
Hmm.
to counteract the effects of global warming,
I see.
like a giant planetary scale sunshade.
Okay, wow, that's a wild image.
Right.
And they're talking about calcium carbonate, right, as the material.
Yes.
What's the deal with that?
Calcium carbonate, or KCO3.
Okay.
It's actually a very common substance.
Hmm.
It's the main component of limestone and chalk.
Okay.
Scientists are interested in it because it's highly reflective,
Yeah.
and they think it could potentially be dispersed into the stratosphere.
So they'd be spraying this stuff high up in the atmosphere.
That's the idea.
How would they even do that?
Well, one idea is specially designed aircraft or balloons to release the KCO3 particles.
Okay.
There's a project called SCoPEx,
Wow.
which stands for Stratospheric Controlled Perturbation Experiment, run by Harvard University and backed by Bill Gates.
Oh, that's right, SCoPEx. I remember reading about that.
Yeah.
Wasn't there supposed to be a test in Sweden?
Yeah, there was a planned test back in 2021,
Okay.
but it was canceled
Oh, wow.
because of public concerns and opposition from indigenous groups.
Makes sense.
Yeah, the test was only supposed to be a small-scale release of KCO3,
Okay.
just to get some initial data about how these particles disperse in the atmosphere.
Right. I can see why people would be worried.
Yeah.
Sounds like a huge gamble with potentially big consequences.
Oh, sure.
What were they hoping to learn from that test, though?
Well, the main goal was to measure how effectively KCO3 particles scatter sunlight
Okay.
and to study their potential interactions with other atmospheric components. It was a very preliminary step
Right.
to try and get a better handle on the risks and benefits of this kind of intervention.
Speaking of risks and benefits, you mentioned some potential positive side effects related to the ozone layer.
Yeah, so some preliminary research suggests that KCO3 particles might actually react with ozone-depleting substances in the stratosphere, which could potentially help replenish the ozone layer.
So it's like a double win.
Potentially.
Cool the planet and help heal the ozone layer.
That's the idea.
But I imagine there are a lot of uncertainties, too,
Oh, absolutely.
about how this would all play out.
We're talking about a very complex system here.
Right.
One of the biggest unknowns is how much KCO3 would actually be needed to have a significant impact on global temperatures and what the side effects might be.
Yeah.
There's a lot more research that needs to be done.
It seems like messing with the Earth's atmosphere is a pretty risky thing.
Yeah.
Are there any real-world examples we can look at?
Well, in a way, volcanic eruptions
Oh.
provide a kind of natural experiment.
Okay.
They release massive amounts of particles into the atmosphere.
Uh-huh.
And historically, we've seen that these eruptions can have a cooling effect.
Right, like the year without a summer. After Mount Tambora,
1815.
back in 1815, crops failed all over the world.
Yeah.
That's scary stuff.
And more recently,
Yeah.
the eruption of Mount Pinatubo in 1991 caused a drop in global temperatures.
Okay.
That lasted for a couple of years.
So we know these particles can cool the planet,
Yeah.
but it sounds like there can be some pretty bad consequences too.
Oh, for sure.
Did those sources mention anything else about what happened after those eruptions,
They did.
besides the temperature changes?
Yeah, they talked about how these volcanic eruptions can lead to changes in rainfall patterns,
Okay.
causing droughts in some regions and floods in others.
Wow.
They also pointed out that volcanic aerosols,
Yeah.
which are similar to the KCO3 particles, can disrupt the ozone layer.
Okay, so that's a big red flag.
Yeah.
If we're trying to protect the ozone layer, we don't want to make it worse.
Right.
What else do those sources say about potential risks?
Seems like we're walking a tightrope here,
Yeah.
trying to balance the benefits of cooling the planet with the risks of unintended consequences.
Yeah, those sources really highlighted some downsides to this approach.
It did.
It's not just about the science. It's about the ethics and the global implications
Totally.
of messing with our climate.
Yeah.
What were some of the ethical concerns they highlighted?
Well, one of the biggest worries is that this focus on a technological fix, like sun dimming, could distract us from the root of the problem,
Right.
our reliance on fossil fuels.
It's like sweeping the problem under the rug.
Exactly.
We think we have a quick fix, so why bother making the hard choices
Right.
to transition to cleaner energy?
It creates a moral hazard.
Right.
The idea that we can keep polluting because we have the safety net. And then there's the issue of control.
Oh, yeah.
Who gets to decide if we dim the sun?
Yeah, that's a big one.
It's hard enough to get global consensus on simple things.
Right.
Imagine trying to get everyone to agree on something this radical.
Like manipulating the entire planet's climate.
Exactly.
It's a recipe for disaster.
It is.
Sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
So we got environmental damage, ethical dilemmas, global conflict. Is anyone actually pushing for this?
Well, there are some scientists and policymakers who believe it's something we need to research further as a potential last resort if other efforts fail. They argue we need to understand the risks and benefits before ruling it out completely.
I can see both sides.
Yeah.
We need to explore all options, but also be extremely cautious.
Absolutely.
About something with such huge consequences.
Right.
Did those sources offer any other solutions?
They did.
Something less radical.
They emphasized the importance of transitioning away from fossil fuels and investing in renewable energy like solar and wind power.
Right.
They also talked about carbon capture and storage technologies to remove CO2 from the atmosphere.
Those sound a lot less scary than messing with the sun.
Right.
But are those technologies really scalable enough?
That's a good point.
To make a real difference?
We've been talking about switching to renewables for decades.
Yeah.
And we're still heavily reliant on fossil fuels. That's true.
Yeah.
It's a huge challenge.
Right.
But there's growing momentum behind these solutions.
Okay.
Renewable energy is becoming more cost competitive. And there are some promising advances in carbon capture.
Okay.
The sources also pointed to nature-based solutions.
Oh, like what?
Like reforestation, restoring ecosystems to absorb CO2.
So it sounds like we need a multi-pronged approach, not just one silver bullet.
We need a portfolio of solutions. Reducing emissions, investing in clean energy, finding ways to remove carbon.
Yeah.
And it all needs to be done fairly.
Right.
Taking into account the needs of everyone around the world.
That's a tall order.
It is.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of this.
For sure.
Makes you wonder what we can do as individuals.
Right. It's true. Individual actions alone won't solve the problem, but they're still important. We can all make choices in our lives that reduce our carbon footprint.
Like what?
Like choosing energy-efficient appliances, driving less, eating less meat.
Makes sense.
And we can vote for leaders who prioritize climate action, hold them accountable for their promises.
Absolutely.
And we can support organizations working to address climate change, advocate for policies that promote sustainability.
Yeah, every little bit helps.
Exactly.
This has been a really thought-provoking dive so far.
It has.
From sun dimming to unintended consequences to individual action.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
For sure.
But it's a conversation we need to keep having.
Absolutely. So where do we go from here? So we've talked about sun dimming, the risks, and the alternative solutions.
Yeah.
But it all brings up a bigger question for me.
Okay.
What's the role of technology in all this? Is it a savior or a dangerous distraction?
That's a great question, and I think the answer is nuanced. Technology is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. It depends how we choose to use it.
So in the context of climate change, how do we make sure technology is used responsibly?
Ethically. I think it starts with open and honest conversations about the risks and benefits of any new technology, especially ones that could have big impacts on the environment or society.
Like this.
Yeah, the sources I read really emphasized involving everyone in these discussions.
Like who?
Scientists, policymakers, ethicists, community members.
It can't just be scientists making decisions alone.
Exactly. We need to consider the wider impacts.
Did those sources give any examples of how this kind of dialogue is already happening?
They did. They highlighted organizations like the Climate Overshoot Commission, which brings together experts from around the world. to assess the risks of these climate intervention technologies.
Including sun dimming.
Yeah.
So they're looking at all the options.
Exactly. They want a comprehensive picture.
Okay, but even if we have these conversations
Yeah.
and do our research,
Right.
there's still the issue of global cooperation.
Oh, absolutely.
Like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Getting countries to agree on anything is hard,
It is.
especially something as controversial as sun dimming.
You're right. Those sources emphasize that international cooperation is key for any of these technologies to be used safely
Right.
and responsibly.
Yeah.
And it needs to go beyond just governments talking to each other.
Okay.
We need to engage with everyone.
Right, like who?
Civil society, indigenous communities.
Okay.
Anyone who could be affected.
So building trust is crucial.
Yeah.
But how do we do that in a world that feels so divided?
It's tough, but I think recognizing our shared humanity is a good start. And our connection with nature.
Right.
The climate crisis is a global problem.
Yeah.
It needs a global solution.
We need to work together.
Exactly.
That's a powerful message. It's easy to feel powerless with such a huge problem.
It is.
But I think it's important to remember that our individual actions matter.
I agree. We can all make choices that help.
Right.
Whether it's using less energy,
Sure.
choosing sustainable products, supporting eco-friendly businesses.
Yeah.
It all adds up.
And we can advocate for change.
Absolutely.
Vote for the right leaders.
Yes.
Support environmental organizations.
Every action makes a difference.
This deep dive has been incredible.
It has.
We've explored sun dimming, the ethics, the alternative.
It covered a lot of ground.
But the biggest takeaway for me
Yeah.
is that we have the power to shape the future.
We do.
And we need to use that power wisely.
Couldn't agree more. The choices we make today will affect future generations.
Yeah.
Let's create a world that's sustainable and just.
A world where we can all thrive.
Exactly.
This has been an amazing conversation.
It really has.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Share your thoughts and questions in the comments below.
We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time, keep exploring
Keep questioning.
and keep diving deep.